Hello and welcome to Let's Review. Demons are tricky critters. As a general rule of thumb when encountering them, the best operating practice is to stab them repeatedly in the face. That being said, stories about making deals with demons have been around for a hell of a long time, pun absolutely intended. From supposed wizards like Faust to legendary guitarists like Robert Johnson, many people are said to have made deals with demons in exchange for something else: money, wealth, power, whatever. In Bound by Flame, your body has been invaded by a demonic entity, and it's up to you how you deal with it. Will you give in to it in exchange for greater power, or will you resist it in an attempt to hold on to your humanity? An interesting enough premise for a story, but how does it fare as a game? Well, the easy way to answer that is to start with the gameplay. Bound by Flame is a third-person action RPG set in a fantasy world. Because, of course, we've never heard of one of those before. Let me think. Threatened by an army of the Walking Dead? Nope, heard that. On the Brink of Destruction? Nope, heard that one too. Okay. The setting's not exactly original, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. A lot of really good games use that kind of setup. So the issue is, does the gameplay hold up? Yeah, it really does. Bound by Flame's combat system comes in two primary modes: Warrior Mode and Ranger Mode. In Warrior Mode, you use your sword, and/or axe, and/or hammer, depending on your personal choice. While in Ranger Mode, you use a pair of daggers. Ranger Mode also allows you to be a little bit stealthy and attempt to sneak up on the opponents to deal some initial damage. However, unless you put enough points into it, you're probably going to get spotted. This build in particular is an early level warrior. In addition, after an early point in the story, you acquire fire powers, so you can throw out fireballs, or do things like set your weapon on fire, providing you don't get interrupted. I will be honest, the combat in this game is pretty brutal. You can already see, even though some low-level enemies, I'm taking large amounts of damage. Everything is based around blocking what the enemy can throw at you, or at least it is in Warrior Mode. In Ranger Mode, you do have a dodge move, which can allow you to get out of the way, and then come in for the counter. It's all about strike and counter. If you block at exactly the right moment, you'll get a counter move such as that, which will do some damage, slow down time, and allow you to get in a few hits. And that's the primary focus of the combat. It's all about timing your attacks right, learning the enemy's attack sequences so that you can counter them effectively, and throwing the right attack their way. In the case of something like these early level chrysalids, they're not too difficult to learn their attack patterns, and with a little luck you can interrupt them and avoid doing too much damage. On this difficulty level, which is the second one from the bottom, so it's effectively normal, if you get swarmed by more than about 2 to 3 enemies at once, you will probably die. The easy mode is significantly easier, to the point where it's virtually a cakewalk, whereas this mode is extremely difficult at times. I haven't even attempted to play it on the harder difficulties, and I have no idea how bad it is there. As you would expect, dagger attacks are significantly faster than sword attacks, but do less damage. So it's your classic trade-off. You also don't really get counter-attacks with the daggers, you just get dodge counters. And that's really it for Bound by Flame's combat system. It's fairly simple, fairly elegant. There's a lot of very nice animations on the sword swings. You can cancel out of them at any time and go straight into a block, which is very, very effective. There's a little bit of lag on the controls on occasion, but other than that, it works absolutely fine. The game's difficulty can be rather punishing, even on normal. though it never really feels unfair with that. It's challenging, sure, and you'll need a god-awful number of health potions to actually get through it all, but it never really feels cheap, with the possible exception of the last boss. Beyond the raw combat, the game also has the first crafting system I've found that I genuinely like. Yes, you heard that right. I tolerate crafting systems in games. I've never before found one which I genuinely liked. And the thing is, this system works so well because it's relatively simple and elegant. And to explain why, I got to use this. This is my sword. And like all swords, she's made up of 4 major parts. The blade, the hilt, the crossguard, and the pommel. Now, each of these serves a different purpose, and different swordsmiths and sword wielders favour different blade designs. Within Bound by Flame, when you acquire a new sword, you get only the blade and a hilt. You can then craft a guard and a pommel based on your own preference of playstyle.
Within the game, the crafting system is really excellent. I've already mentioned briefly about it, but I'll demonstrate now. This is my current sword. Without its guard and its pommel, it's fairly basic. However, I've already crafted for it the lethal guard, which gives you +4 physical damage. However, I've got a lot of other options, so extra ability to interrupt, critical chance, and you will notice over here that each time I select a different thing, it does change the appearance of the crossguard, which is a very nice addition. I've not really seen that in a lot of games. They'll give you different stat bonuses and things, but they rarely change the appearance. Same goes for the pommel. I'm using the one that gives me greater attack speed here, but I could go for extra health, resistance to fire, extra poison, resistance to ice, resistance to dark, physical damage. So lots and lots of options. The better the sword, the more options you're going to have. This is fairly late game, so this is a pretty good sword. In fact, I think this is the sword I ended up finishing the game with. Similarly, as you can adapt armor in exactly the same way, and again, late game armor, so lots of options on how I can upgrade it. So I've gone for the extra health regeneration, but I could have gone for physical resistance, max magic, magic regeneration, interruption resist, and again, the spoilers will actually change, as will tacits. And same goes for just about everything within it. So extra gloves will give you elbow pads. You'll get knee pads when you upgrade greaves. Unfortunately, no modifications to helms, but yeah, short of putting sort of silly things on the sides, there's not much you can do to improve a basic helm like that. So yeah, that's the crafting system.
I like this system. It lets you customize your weapons and armor in ways that feel natural. Take Annie here, for example. The pommel is a lot heavier than standard, shifting the center of balance much further up the blade. This makes her a lot faster on turns, as well as providing pommel strikes that are particularly brutal. The crossguard includes a pair of hooks, which are designed to catch blades both defensively and for when you want to get in close and do some clever twisty things. Bound by Flame does a solid job of conveying these principles within the bounds of video game logic. Beyond the combat and crafting system, of course, the next major component is the story. The story centers around Vulcan.
Fascinating.
Less Star Trek, more Roman god. Vulcan is a member of a mercenary group called the Freeborn Blades, who have been contracted to guard a group of scholars called the Red Scribes, while they perform some sort of ritual to combat the Ice Lords, whose dead armies are currently sweeping the world. Of course, this ritual goes wrong when the enemy attacks, and Vulcan ends up with a demon bound to him or her, depending on your choice in character creation. The upside of this, it allows Vulcan to access pyromancy. And let's be honest about this, pyromancy is awesome. This leads Vulcan and her comrades on a quest to find the mystical World Heart, the source from where the Ice Lords have been drawing their power, and from where they can be defeated if you are able to sever their link to it. All the while, the demon is offering you more power in exchange for giving it greater freedom and control. The story is very much a classic tale of how far will you go in order to save the world and the people you care about, and can you still be human by the end? And given that you can go from looking like this to this, it's actually a pretty pertinent question. And the worrying thing is, I think I actually find Demon Vulcan more attractive than Human Vulcan. Yeah, I think it's safely established by now that I have issues. While the decisions you make with regards to giving in to the demon will affect your appearance and some elements of the gameplay, their impact on the story is sadly rather limited. Regardless of the decisions you make, you'll end up in the same fights, fighting the same bosses after beating the same monsters to get to them. There is a little bit of difference in the characters you'll have by your side, but it's mostly minor. The story also suffers from tell don't show syndrome. Several major plot points play out off-screen, including 2 sizable battles that we never see either of the armies involved. It just feels a bit weak to never see the fruits of our work. It's kind of like if this was how Lord of the Rings played out.
Here the hammer stroke will fall hardest. If the river is taken, if the garrison at Osgiliath falls, the last defense of this city will be gone.
Gandalf, the forces of Mordor have been routed, the Battle of Pelennor is won, and Frodo has dropped the ring into the fires of Mount Doom. Then it is truly over. Except for the many, many endings. And wouldn't that be something of a letdown? On the topic of letdowns, this game includes romance options, and they're incredibly pointless. There are 4 of them, and they are fully gender restricted. Males can only romance females and vice versa. Combined with the fact that they also either approve or disapprove of the demon, you don't really have a choice. If you're a demon-free male, it's Sybil or no one. Same goes for each of the other 3. And even with those limited choices, there's no payoff. You get one scene towards the end of the game with some light flirting and maybe a kiss, and it just feels shoehorned in. There's no lead up to it either. Frankly, if they were going to half-arse it this badly, I'd have preferred them to leave it out entirely. All that said, I do actually like the story. For all its problems, it holds together well enough, and most of the side characters are pretty interesting and well written. Even if Vulcan herself is rather bland and frankly a little overfond of 4-letter words. And that's coming from someone who agrees with this.
The sort of twee person who thinks swearing is in any way a sign of a lack of education or of a lack of verbal interest or is just fucking lunatic.
Bound by Flame also has the decency not to sequel bait. All 3 endings are pretty definitive and the story is well wrapped up in all of them, so kudos for that. And that's probably all I can really say about the story without delving into spoiler territory, so on to the graphics.
Graphically speaking, this game looks fine. Nothing spectacular. The character models are probably the weakest part of it, though there are some rather lovely, or more accurately terrifying, creature designs. The Tormentors in particular are a favourite of mine. The game manages to hold a solid 60 frames per second, but it is capped there. It's not a problem for those of us who are only running on 60Hz monitors, but it might be a factor for anyone with a better monitor than mine. The texture quality is pretty good, there's a few nice particle effects and things like that. And the fire effects in particular are very, very nice, but let's face it, in a game... Spell? Helps if I demonstrate with the right spell, doesn't it? But in a game based around pyromancy, you better hope the fire effects look good. That being said, the animation on people's faces during cutscenes is pretty weak. The lip syncing in particular is wildly inconsistent. One note I would like to add, though, is that whoever designed the scabbard that Vulcan uses, and in fact all the Freeborn blades do, I would like to congratulate you because that's the first chance I've ever had to see a scabbard that I genuinely think could be used for a quick draw from a backsheet. So congratulations there.
This game sounds pretty nice on the whole. The music is nothing memorable, but it works, and there are some spectacular creature noises to go along with their really great designs. The voice acting is a little mixed. Some of it's excellent. The actress playing Edwin in particular deserves credit. The rest of it, however, is just kind of bad. It's not the worst I've ever heard, but given that I've heard the original Resident Evil, that's not saying much. And let's face it, I probably shouldn't criticise others for their VO work, given the quality of mine. Another visual novel next week, by the way. Beyond that, there's really not much to say about the audio, so onwards. So, did I like Bound by Flame? Yes, I did. Should you buy it? The issue here is that I actually want you to buy it. But the main reason for that isn't this game itself. I actually see a lot of potential in this studio. With a bigger budget, more time, I suspect they could create something really, really excellent, and I want to see them given that chance. And let's be honest, any game capable of doing this to me...
Oh, hell yes! Oh,
is probably worth giving a go. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have got to go and try and figure out a way to set this sword on fire without ruining the blade completely. I'll see you later.
Through you, I am born.